If you like watching movies or even reading a good fiction, you know that a traditional ending to a book is always the good old phrase, the end. You know that by saying it's the end, it's pointing to or describing a specific ending, probably unique to that book. It's not simply a ending, right? A ending means it could be one of many types of ending. So the distinction here is when you use an a, that is called an indefinite article. It's talking about this is one of many things. When you want to point to one specific thing, English uses the definite article, the. So, as for example, a bread. It could be any form of bread from any stand in the world. If I say, I want you to bring the or the bread, here you know that I'm talking about a very specific bread. In English grammar, you know that these indefinite or definite article always precedes the noun that it's pointing to. And an indefinite article can also change its form, especially if the noun following it is beginning with a vowel, like a, e, I, o, u. For example, an ant. You know that a non-native English speaker like me might say a ant because we're not familiar with grammatical rules. But those who are familiar with English know that the a changes to an ant, because the indefinite article is followed by a noun beginning with a vowel. I explain this because English indefinite and definite articles are helpful in discussing Hebrew definite articles or indefinite articles. We have the same grammatical structure. Just as an indefinite article or an article in English precedes the noun, the article in Hebrew also precedes the noun. We also know that just as in English, an indefinite article can change between an a or an and depending on the following word, the article in Hebrew also has a slight change depending on what word follows. So let's then talk about definiteness of nouns in Hebrew. Any dictionary form that is a noun in its triliteral root form is indefinite by definition. So lechem is always a bread. However, if we want to say instead of a bread, now we want to say the bread, pointing to something very specific. What Hebrew would do is it adds the definite article ha. The definite article in Hebrew is spelled with a he, with a patak under it, and a dagesh forte in the following letter. So here you're going to see the example, ha, lechem. You can see that there's the ha, the he with a patak preceding the word or noun lechem. And within the first letter of lechem, that is lamed, you will see the dot, the dagesh forte. This becomes very, very important in understanding the irregularities or the vowel changes that will happen with other rules. So please pay attention to that. Just as English, the indefinite article a changes when the following word begins with a vowel. Similarly, with Hebrew, when you attach an definite article, ha, to a word beginning with a guttural, there will be something called a compensatory lengthening. That is a vowel change. And just as a quick reminder, you learned that one of the key rules of guttural letters is that they reject the dagesh forte. So there's a complication. Now we know that a definite article is pronounced ha with he, patak, and a dagesh forte in the first letter of the noun. But if there is a noun beginning with a guttural, it doesn't want the dagesh forte. It rejects it. So what will happen? What will happen here is that the vowel under the definite article ha, which is the patak, lengthens to a kamat. This is because patach is a short vowel and it will take the lengthened form kamat, as you see in this table. How I envision this in my head is that the guttural letter is saying, I don't want to be doubled, I will push you back. So the doubling, that is the dagesh forte, is pushed back and is shoved under the vowel, which makes it longer. There's more of it now. So what's happening is instead of doubling the letter, what you can think of it is now you see the vowel being doubled. While for the most part, the patak lengthens to a kamat, there are some exceptions. For example, when the definite article is preceding a word that begins with a hey or a chet, there's something called a virtual doubling in which it remains a patach, but we kind of know that it must have doubled in theory. In other instances, when the definite article precedes a word beginning with a hey, chet, or ayin with a kamat under it, it actually doesn't lengthen to a kamat, but now instead it lengthens to a segel with a sound. To conclude, I want to illustrate maybe one way that why knowing the definite article or indefinite article helps us interpret the Bible in a better, more responsible way. Here I have a verse from Job chapter 1, verse 7. In the Hebrew it reads, Vayomer Adonai el hasatan me a'in tavo. In the English translation, it usually says, Yahweh said to so-and-so, where do you come from? This is Job chapter 1, verse 7. There are two interpretive or translational options here. I think what most people are familiar with from the Bibles or stories that they grew up hearing is that here the Lord is speaking to Satan. Satan with a capital S. However, what we find out when reading the text closely is that you see that the word Satan here, often translated Satan here, is ha-satan. And Satan is actually a noun, which means adversary or accuser. One rule of the definite article that I didn't mention earlier is that definite article are attached to nouns, but they are never attached to what we call proper nouns. Proper nouns are place names or individuals' names that are very unique to themselves. For example, it will be words or names like Abraham, David, maybe place names like Bethlehem. These are all what we consider proper nouns. If you study Hebrew and read carefully, you'll find out that definite articles are never attached directly to these proper nouns. So, if you look at the passage again, you see that here the Lord is speaking to Ha-Satan, the Satan. Well, based on the Hebrew grammatical rule, now we already know that Satan here is not a specific name of a devil or a specific name of a character. No, so perhaps translating this passage as Satan, capital S, is not the most grammatically accurate way to translate it. Instead, what we can say here is that the definite article is saying that who the Lord is speaking to is a specific figure, because it has the, right? It's talking about a figure, but a figure who is serving and functioning as an adversary or someone who goes against God. For those who might be lost, well, I thought that this was always talking about the Satan. Well, one thing that you can remember is that, yes, who is an adversary against God? Of course, this is probably those who are in the heavenly realm going against the Lord. Perhaps it could be Satan with a capital S. But what I'm trying to say here is that when we read the text carefully, it actually will point out to us that at least in the story of Job, it's not specified who or what the name of the oppressor or adversary is.